The prairie was sinking into dusk, the kind of dusk that makes the horizon look like the end of the earth, where land and sky dissolve into each other in silence. Shadows crept long across the brittle grass, and the last warmth of daylight slipped away like a secret nobody cared to keep. The wind carried the faint rattle of dry leaves, the cry of a distant crow, and the restless murmur of thunder whispering from beyond the hills. It was the sort of evening that made a man feel smaller than his own horse, smaller than his own shadow, as though even the earth itself was watching him without sympathy. Elias Boone rode with the kind of slowness that comes from years of not needing to hurry anywhere. His ranch lay behind him, the fences stretching like bones across the land, and before him was nothing but the uneven swell of prairie broken only by the crooked silhouettes of dead trees. He had not meant to ride this far, but loneliness had a way of driving him farther than he planned, and though the sun was gone, something in him did not want to turn back just yet. The leather reins sat loose in his hands, his shoulders bent, his hat low, his face worn by weather more than years. He was 35, but his eyes carried 50. The kind of man whose silence spoke of hunger, loss, and the ache of words never said. It was then, as his horse halted with a sudden nervous snort, that Elias saw her. At first, he thought it was nothing more than a rag of cloth snagged on a fence post, the wind tugging it this way and that. But when his eyes adjusted to the half-light, he saw a body slumped against the wooden post, the figure of a young woman barely upright, as if the land itself was holding her up out of pity. Her dress, once pale, was stained dark, and her hair hung tangled over her face. One arm dangled at her side, lifeless, the other pressed weakly to her ribs. And there, lodged deep in her flesh, was the hilt of a knife, its steel buried so far that only the handle caught the dim light. Elias froze in the saddle. For a breath, he did not move. The plains had shown him many sights: men cut down in gunfire, horses broken and left, coyotes gnawing on bones, but this was different. There was something unbearably human about the stillness of the girl, the way she trembled yet did not fall. He dismounted slowly, boots sinking into the dry soil, his horse sidestepping with unease, nostrils flaring at the scent of blood. As he came closer, he heard her voice. Fragile, broken, a whisper carried on air too thin to hold it. "Please, don't pull the knife out. I want to die." It was not a scream, not even a plea, more like a confession uttered to the dusk itself. Elias felt the words strike him harder than any bullet. He stopped a few paces away, hat in hand, breath heavy. She did not raise her head to see him. Perhaps she thought him a ghost. Perhaps she no longer cared what was real. He studied her face, pale beneath the streaks of dirt and blood, the hollowed cheeks of hunger and sorrow, eyes half closed as if she longed to slip away from sight. She was young, no more than 22, and yet she carried the expression of someone who had lived far beyond her years, someone who had seen promises turn to ashes. Every part of her body told the same story: a life fought, a heart abandoned, and now a soul surrendering. "Please, don't. I don't want to live." Her voice cracked, the last note of a song that had been sung too long. Elias stepped closer, slow and deliberate, as if any sudden movement might shatter her remaining grip on this world. His voice, when it came, was rough with disuse yet steady. "I won't leave you alone." It was all he said, but the words hung heavy between them, grounding her, grounding him. For the first time in years, his voice carried weight not for himself but for another. Her eyelids fluttered, and for the first time, she looked at him. The faintest glimmer of surprise passed across her face, as though she had expected only the crows for company. Her lips trembled with the shadow of a reply, but no sound came. She turned her face away again, breath shallow, as though ashamed to be seen in her brokenness. Elias crouched before her, his knees creaking, his hands hovering in the air uncertain whether to touch her or not. He had been a rancher all his life, his hands skilled at breaking wild horses, mending wood, drawing water from stubborn earth. But here, before this girl with a knife in her side, he felt clumsy and unfit, like a man asked to mend glass with bare fingers. Still, his eyes did not leave her. He saw not a stranger, but something that reached into his own quiet loneliness. He saw the same emptiness he carried, mirrored back at him. The silence stretched long, only the restless stamping of his horse, and the distant growl of thunder filling it. Elias spoke again, softer. Whoever left you here, they were wrong. You don't die alone out here. Not like this. His words were plain, stripped of poetry, but they came from the marrow. He reached out, slow as the dusk itself, his hand brushing her shoulder. She flinched, a reflex born of too many wounds, but she did not push him away. Her breathing grew ragged, and for a moment Elias feared she would indeed slip from him then and there. His hand pressed lightly to the earth beside her, anchoring them both. He could feel her pulse, faint but stubborn, as if her body clung to life despite her heart's surrender. She tried to speak, lips parting with effort. "Leave me, you'll carry my curse." Her words were hardly more than a breath, yet Elias heard them as clearly as the rumble of thunder. He shook his head, his jaw firm, eyes steady. "I told you, I won't leave you alone." Her eyes opened fully this time, and in them was a storm fiercer than the one crawling across the horizon. Pain, yes. Fear, yes. But also disbelief, as if the idea of someone choosing to stay was foreign to her. She searched his face for a lie and found none. Slowly, she exhaled, the knife handle trembling with the movement of her ribs. Tears pooled, hot against her dirt-streaked cheeks. For the first time, she allowed herself to lean, just slightly, against his strength. The wind whipped harder, the prairie grass bending low as the storm drew near. Elias knew they could not linger. The night would not show mercy to the weak. Carefully, he slid one arm beneath her knees, the other behind her shoulders, lifting her with the gentleness of a man carrying something sacred. She gasped, biting back pain, but did not resist. The knife remained lodged, a cruel reminder, yet Elias knew enough not to pull it. He had no medicine, no healer's hands, only the stubborn will not to let her slip away. He carried her to his horse, whose eyes rolled white at the smell of blood. "Easy now," Elias whispered, though he wasn't sure if he spoke to the horse or the girl in his arms. He mounted with effort, settling her against him, her head lolling weakly onto his chest. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with the weight of responsibility he had not felt in years. The storm broke above them with a flash of lightning, the land illuminated stark and raw. In that brief blaze of light, Elias looked down at her face and felt something ignite in him. Not desire, not yet love, but a fierce and unshakable knowing. This girl was not meant to vanish into dust. Not while he breathed. Rain began to fall, sharp and cold, striking the land with a sound like 1,000 whispers. Elias turned his horse toward the dim outline of his ranch. The girl pressed against him, her breath shallow but steady. Thunder rolled like drums of war, the sky splitting with white fire, but Elias held her close, one hand steady on the reins, the other wrapped firm around her, promising without words that he would not falter. The land stretched endless and merciless, yet in that vast emptiness, two souls clung together, broken yet unbroken. As they rode through the storm, she stirred once more, her voice no louder than the rain against his coat. "Who are you?" Elias tightened his hold, his own voice low, rough, but certain. "Just a man who won't let you die alone." She closed her eyes, tears mingling with rain, her lips forming a shape he could not hear. Then silence. But not the silence of surrender, the silence of trust, fragile as a candle flame. The storm swallowed them whole, but within it, something had shifted. What began as the end for her had become the beginning for them both. And as lightning carved the horizon, Elias knew that whatever shadows lay ahead, he had already chosen. He would not let her be forgotten by the wind. He would fight the darkness beside her, even if it broke him. For the first time in years, he felt alive. For the first time, he was not alone.